Hello, and welcome to Owning It, the podcast that celebrates the inspiring choices made by women who refuse to simply follow the crowd and chose the road less traveled. I'm your host, Sandhya Thukaram, and in each episode, we'll have real conversations with these incredible women who choose to carve their own path because following just isn't an option. They may not be making headlines, but every one of them is a role model. So join me and let's explore the power of choice and the inspiration it brings right here on Owning It. In this latest episode of Owning It, we dive into the inspiring journey of Richa, a seasoned tech professional who made a transformative leap into the world of fashion entrepreneurship. Richa's mission is ambitious to elevate the traditional weaves of Orissa's tribal artisans to the global stage. Stepping out of her comfort zone and finding her purpose, Richa's story is all about owning it. Richa, hi. Thanks for joining
Hi,
me on
Sandhya.
Owning It. When I recently met you, I came back thinking how special it was to meet someone who's found their purpose. You don't often meet someone who's found their purpose. I think a lot of us go through that journey. I feel I haven't found mine yet. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it's extra special when you have. And usually I start these conversations going back in time. But with you, because I feel that you're at such a significant point in your journey, I want to start with now. I want to start with the birth of BOITO. Tell me about how a young engineer went from being a techie of sorts and has now found her purpose in the heartland of Orissa.
Sandhya, to tell you honestly, I do feel very strongly about BOITO. I do feel that I've found a purpose. I've found a place where I feel really happy and I feel very passionate about doing what I'm doing. How it all started, I've been with SAP for almost 16 plus years of my life, the one company that I kind of was married to forever. And I hated the idea of stepping out of that place. I was so comfortable there. But I think during COVID times, and it was a boon with COVID, I took a little bit of a time off. I took a sabbatical from my job and I wanted to figure out what I could do with my life. I was waking up with someone who has dedicated himself to social impact, and I think that rubbed on me in a big way. I'm talking about my husband, Richa Maheshwari. He runs Udyam. When I started looking out, I think the one thing I've missed growing up is a language that I could call my own. My parents, my mother is from the north and my father's from Orissa. So we always grew up speaking Hindi and English. It was a boon that I met this set of kindergarten friends from yesteryears, and we met almost 30 years after not seeing each other. I think we instantly connected, and they taught me the language. They taught me Odia, and I there was some sort of a warmth in there. There was something that kept me going back into that land where I didn't grow up at all, but it felt like home. And that's when I started. And when I took the sabbatical, I started traveling deep into Orissa, into very remote pockets of Orissa, in trying to figure out if there is something that I can make or I can spend my life doing, right? Something worth a purpose. And what stood out for me instantaneously was the ikat weaving that we have in the state, which in the country, I think we only have Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, and Orissa that indulge in this resist dyeing process. And we also have almost 10% of the country's population congregated in Orissa, which means almost 62 tribal communities. And each of them have a beautiful indigenous story that they have behind them. So when I'm saying tribal communities, I'm talking about specifically weaving communities that make their own clothes. And these clothes, by the way, are very minimalistic, yet aesthetically very progressive and very beautiful looking. So there was a lot staring at me in my face that there is this ikat resist dyeing, which comes from the eastern belt of Orissa, where we're able to weave beautiful tales. And Odia people, by the way, are extremely good at storytelling. And we also have a lot of stories to our credit because of our rich cultural history and maritime history. These stories are very easily woven into garis and stoles, which is what they currently weave. And if you look at the saris, they will have stories of Jagannath. They will have stories of how the deities are a tribal representation, because you'll see big eyes and you'll see no hands, and there is some sort of a tale going. Then there is the how the Konark was built in the middle of a water body, for example, using very powerful magnets. But these are all woven into fabric, and these are, by the way, timeless historic tales, which will be forgotten with time. But because people are so close to these stories and they believe in them, and because textile weaving is such a principal focus in each of these family units, um, their weaving reflects these tales, and their belief system and value system is kind of housed in these woven motifs and patterns that they are currently into. So it just becomes that interesting canvas that we are dealing with. The tale of the community is interesting, as well as how they translate it onto the fabric or the garment that they wear is extremely interesting for me. Right. And then if you move on to, let's say, the Bonda community that came in from Africa almost 60,000 years ago, I would say. And if you look at them today, they haven't moved spatially, right? They're still in those forested thick hills in Malkangiri district. They live in Bonda Ghati, and they are a sensitive tribal community in the sense that they are they're, I would say, malnutritioned, and they only have an average lifespan of, let's say, 50 years. They don't let medical intervention, etc., help them. But at the same time, what really is beautiful about them is they are self-sufficient. So they have trees like the kerang trees growing in their backyard. They take the bark of the tree, they make their own yarn with that bark, and they make a rectangular piece of loin cloth, which is the only piece of garment on their body. And it makes that textile so interesting for me, because every house is able to weave it for themselves, so they're not dependent on outsiders to so it's a very timeless tale in each of these textile traditions that we notice. And I found it extremely magical, and it just helped me, like you rightly said, find purpose, because it began as a passion project for me. It still is, in fact, a big passion project for me, because I believe in these textiles, I believe in these people, and I believe that this storytelling exercise has great potential, because these communities don't understand the potential of what they're doing or the USP of what they're able to present. And I, coming from a background where I understand the meaning of what a PPT can do, or what beautiful storytelling can do, or what a right narrative can do, I think I want to marry these two. I want to bring that art form to the fore and tell this story on a more wider global platform.
Richa, thank you for taking me through the beauty of Orissa. I mean, I'm so intrigued, and I know at some point I've had this brief conversation with you. I'm going to take you up on the offer of discovering Orissa through your eyes, because you
I
make
would
it
love to
sound
take you.
so beautiful. However, much as I love the idea of Boito, I want to stay with Richa.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's Richa, who met some childhood friends 30 years later and discovered her language, and through that, her purpose. What has that meant, Richa, apart from going back in time and discovering and being intrigued to make it something that has actually formed what you want to do going forward? But has it been as seamless as that?
Connecting with the communities, in the beginning, it was just about this fun ride for me, because I was discovering my own state, and I was spending time with people, understanding, what the food is like, and how the food can be so beautiful when it's in one dona or one leaf kind of thing. They would give one dosa, one bada, one chutney, one sambar, everything mishmash, and it would still taste divine, and I'd pay 20 rupees for it. And it was just very different for me. Also, the landscape was different. Living in people's homes in these little villages was a very fresh breath of air, especially after being in a corporate setup for that long a period of time. So in the beginning, of course, it was very romantic, because I was only trying to figure out, okay, this is beautiful, that is beautiful. I'm loving my language. I'm able to connect with people at a different level, because I have the upper hand of Odia. I'm not received as a tourist anymore. I would go into a shop in a village, and I'd be buying some fabric, exploring, and it would be 1:30 p.m. And I would be like, okay, where can I get lunch? Because I really want to eat the food here. I can't miss it. And the shopkeeper would tell me, this is a village. You won't, all the restaurants shut by 12. You're late. Why don't you come home?
How
And I would happily go into his house, and his wife, while feeding me beautiful meal, with has all the local curries, etc., would actually notice that I don't have bangles on my hand, and I'm a married girl and I'm a girl of this state, and she would give me bangles then and there. And so these are little things that added to the warmth in my journey, and it kept pulling me back. I think, the warmth with which people accepted me, even though I haven't grown up here. It took me a while to understand the ways. I'll give you a little episode. I went into this weaver home and I said, I'm so excited by what you do, and these are such beautiful stories on your canvas. I really want to make these garments and present it to a Japan or a China or a Paris, and I'd love that. And I could see the light in his eyes when I had the conversation. I went home very positive, and I gave him some 10 things. This I really need. And it was exactly what he was doing. It wasn't like I was messing with the craft as such. I would just shift the palette a little bit, that make it muddy brown instead of a red, things like that. And I went home and I sent him an Excel sheet with estimated time of delivery for each of these items, and when can you start, and give me short term timelines on how you've progressed. And I think the guy just stopped responding to my calls. He must have thought there's this maniac who's coming from God knows where. So it was a bit of a, like, I didn't understand the ways. One, even Orissa was a new lay of land for me. Two, I'm coming from this organized sector where everything is in Excel sheets and timelines and this, that, and the other. It's all structured. Whereas I'm going into this space where everybody is just leading their beautiful lives, where they wake up in the morning and they say, I need 300 rupees to survive. How do I make those 300 rupees? And they would work for 2 3 hours in a day and stop. They don't want anything beyond that.
Wow,
So
they figured a good
they
life.
figured it out, and I am trying to hammer my thinking into their head, which just wouldn't work. So I think I had to unlearn a lot before I could creep in and mesh with the community. But that was quite a difficult exercise. I would say it took me almost 2 3 months to kind of, start spending more time, get more meals with them, and sit and force myself into, at least let's get a tea together. I would pull this weaver friend. His name is Lakshmi Dhar. He's from Nuapatna, and he's one of the main people who enabled this for us, because we started with the silk sector and then we moved on to tribal textiles. And I think with him and his wife, I learned a lot. And slowly, I kind of found my footing, and now I keep looking forward to finding ways to go back to the state and some terrain. Just want to be in that sourcing sector. The sales is a new ball game altogether for me, so I'm still figuring my path in there. But I think this part I'm holding on to very dearly.
No, it's
That's where it
beautiful.
is.
And actually, the point you alluded to was going to be my next question. So, you, through falling in love with Orissa and the craft and the craftsman, figured the the product side of it. I don't want to use the word, but for the conversation, we'll use the word product.
Yeah.
But it also means there's another side you have to learn, because if you want to take this out to the world, you have to learn a few things. Where are
Right.
you in that journey of setting this up as a business?
So I'll tell you what, because this has been such a floaty and fun and organic journey, and I did not want to mess with it, because I knew that if I'd burn the candle out too strongly, I don't want to be in the same boat of being bored with what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
want everyone in this journey to have fun. So we let ourselves float.
Hmm.
And along the way, we said that, okay, we feel we're prepared because we've made so many friends in the community across 8 9 clusters that we're working with. We have a way to produce textile. We took our designer into these villages, and we did a collaborative exercise of the designer and the weavers sitting together and figuring out, okay, this particular thing we can do a little bit of a color shift. This particular thing we can do a little bit of a 2 inch to a 4 inch. And I'm talking about Anshu Arora, who's our designer for the label. And she was very patient through this exercise. She understood that this is Orissa we are dealing with. We cannot rush them into anything. They're pretty happy as a tribe, right? But at the same time, we want to help ourselves, because we want to be able to expose this art to the outside world and bring back that appreciation into these communities, right? So it's in our interest that we're doing this exercise, and and then basis that we our silhouettes and our designs would take shape basis all the information that was given or the inputs that came in from the weavers. So it is a weaver led exercise, it's not the other way around, right?
Sure.
And then so that was one organic exercise, and we designed our pieces. We had a decent collection of about 25 odd pieces, and then we said that okay, we look reasonably ready to present our case. And then we kind of started reaching out to friends in the space who are in the sales setup, who are in the same business. And we got advice that, a website is a great idea, but even before a website, you should do an event to
Mm.
make a little bit of noise to gain blessings. And I think what really resonated with me was Orissa as a launching point, because it meant that we could get all our weaver families together. We could worked together, and it was easy to get all the artisans together. So we had about 6 7 people. We did one show in Orissa first and Bhubaneswar, and I think that was beautiful because we received blessings. All the weavers came with their families, and everybody loved what we were doing, and that helped our case a lot. So from there we took it. We did not open sales there, but from there we took it to a Bombay, and Srila Chatterjee, who runs Baro Market, she has been instrumental in spreading the right word and in supporting us. And when I met her almost 2 months before we actually launched in Bombay, I met her only for 15 minutes with a backpack with lots of boito creations, and I just kind of started wearing them in front of her, and I gave her the story, just like I told you my tribal textile stories. And within 15 minutes I could see that she's on our side, and she's very, she bought, or rather she was resonating with all our ideas. So she actually said something beautiful. She said that, our space is booked out a year in advance, and therefore it's all chock a block. But having said that, your story is so beautiful that if somebody else did this for you, I'd actually be jealous. So I'm going to find a way to make this
Lovely.
happen. And that to me, you have to imagine this little child who's gone to a candy store and who needs the money to buy it. It was almost like that. So I
Yeah.
was overjoyed, and I came back home, and within a week she figured it out. She found 3 days for us, and we squeezed it all in, and it just became a beautiful story of this that leading to the other. And so we've reached a point where we've publicized ourselves, we've gained traction, and we see a lot of interest from people. We've managed sales as well, and knock on wood for that. So people are
Yeah.
believing in us. And I think the story is powerful. So now I think in terms of next steps, I want to be able to sustain this, keep our weaver units really happy. We want to be able to find a system to pump health into the weaver communities, whether it's state of the art facilities, whether it's nourishment or whatever else it takes, whether it's respect, and of course, an economic shift, which will be an eventuality, I think, if we're able to float this venture across the globe.
Lovely. But staying with Richa,
Yeah,
because I always think about the people who could be listening to our conversation. And the purpose of owning it is for women in similar situations who
right.
are on a fence and say, should I, shouldn't I? And they hear the story and they say, hey, I'm going to take that plunge. So I want to talk about all aspects of making a choice, right? Owning it also comes with choices. It comes with giving up some things, trade offs. You are a young mother of two children in their teens.
Right.
Um, and you also had your corporate job, and you found this passion. How do you balance it? What are your trade offs? How do you make it work? And what are the tough bits?
See, I would say when it comes to family, it has never been tough. And I've had a very supportive husband from the very beginning, who has really pushed me and said that, you're capable of so much more. And the only way to make dreams come true is to actually see them with open eyes. Or rather, you're thinking about something continuously with open eyes. That's a dream that you must go after.
Mm.
So I think when he saw this passion in me, and I'm always talking about this Orissa textile and these people, and they're so beautiful, and he recognized it in me before I could. So he set the stage for me literally, and he said, "Listen, we are gifted. Life has been kind, so we have the leeway to experiment, whether it comes to commercials or it comes to kids or it comes to family life, we are not in a situation where we have to think too hard. Our kids are much older, which means I can take time away from them. And also, having said that, even when they were very young, right, I would step out to an office space for almost 10 hours a day. And it wasn't an easy job even back in the day. My kids are only 2 years apart. I did take a 5 year break when they were born, but after that, I've just been,
Working.
working. So the house was always on autopilot because I was never a very critical unit to kind of manage the wheels. So that worked in my advantage. I think the kids have grown up to be sane individuals and they're at a stage where they can speak English, they can speak Hindi, they can survive the world, and they can do numbers. So I feel like they're pretty ready for the world,
Yeah.
so I'm good. I'm good to let them be. And also, I grew up in a very independent setup. It's not that my both my parents were guiding me at every stage of life, and I appreciate them for it because I had the ability to make my choices, to think for myself at a very young age, and I want to be able to pass that on to my kids as well. So I think it's all good. There's
Lovely.
no,
And
yeah,
those are role models, right? I think nothing teaches our children more than when they see their parents make their choices, right? You can't tell the kid, hey, make your choice, but not be doing that yourself.
right.
So I think you're an amazing role model to your children.
Yeah, I think also freedom is such an important word, right? All of us cherish freedom and we want people to give it to us. And I
Yes.
think therefore we have to be enablers of freedom as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm there as a guideline. I'm there to take care of you if you need me, but otherwise you are your owner and you lead the way. I think that's the way I want to look at it for my kids as well.
No, that's powerful. And you said something very important. Freedom is ours to take. A lot of times we create jails ourselves.
Right.
I mean, the door's always open, but we choose to think of it as closed. So it's a lovely message through your story. The question I'm going to ask is maybe a little unnecessary, but like I said, it came to my mind, so I'm going to ask you. You said at SAP, while you loved it, the sabbatical made you realize that it was a limited existence in a certain way. It was good. There was not. Do you think, though, and this is specifically because of the person you are, I wouldn't ask it of a lot of people, do you think, like you said, for you money isn't a constraint now, that it allows you to view that, or you do you think the person you are would have arrived at this place anyway? Because in a, I don't know if it's a, you tell me if that's a
No, I
question
hear
you
you.
want to answer.
I hear you. I would say that even as a child, I never felt restrained by money.
Mm.
Even though my father would be like, you have to respect, this is your pocket money and this is how much. I would i would be quite careless about it. I wouldn't attach myself to money in a big way. And because I remember him yelling at me at multiple instances where I've lost money or I've found it after losing it, because he's insisted that you go and find that 500 rupees, I don't care. And I would be like, what the hell, papa, it's okay. But I knew that we are struggling, and
Yeah.
despite that, I think I had that Suni money. But
Yeah.
but with time, I think I do respect money a lot. It doesn't come easy, and I've seen those days. But having said that, I'm still of the camp that if we have enough to kind of take us through, I think we're in a position of privilege. If we have a little bit more than what we have to take us
Yeah.
through, we are in a position of privilege, and I'm choosing to exercise that privilege in a way that engages me beautifully for this life.
Actually, even as I asked you that question, I knew this would be your answer because but I wanted to ask that question anyway, because sometimes we have these conversations and it can remain siloed, it can come off. And I wanted to bring across that I feel, even if uh, you were less privileged, but more comfortable than the average person, I think you would be exactly at the same point, is what I feel.
I'm also going to say that I've been extremely fortunate to be in this setup where we're not fighting to make ends meet. So I am in a comfortable setup, thanks to the way life has treated us.
Rich, I want to end our conversation with 5 years later.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be with Boito? Uh, where would I meet you 5 years later in this journey that you've now started on?
Sandhya, like I said, it started as a passion project where I was thoroughly enjoying my journeys into deep into the vein and artery of the state, which I call my home state, right? And suddenly we came to this juncture where we said we can make this available to everyone globally, and let's figure out how to do this. Let's find the building blocks to get there, because that's the one way to make sure that these arts and craft forms are not lost, and these communities don't perish, because they're farming communities, all right, but they can do with a lot more. Even if they're not asking for it, we can show them that, and then it's their choice whether they want to pick it up or not. But they have their USPs going, right? So we want to be able to build that faith, that trust in these communities, that we are here and you are here, and we are both working as a team. And once we take this out, and at this juncture that I am today, we've got a lot of good press going. Everybody loves our work. We've built traction on social media. I feel very responsible at this stage. So it's not anymore just a fun journey that I was doing. It has become a space where I feel like I need to own a lot more than just this passion project space. And I'm responsible to the commitment that I have, which is quite unsaid, but everybody is looking forward to what we can do with this boito, right? And I do want to, like, 5 years from now, like you asked, I want our stories to be heard far and wide. I want our products to be like beautiful, in the sense of not just being appreciated because of the story behind it, but because they're beautifully crafted garments, right? And they have a USP. For example, the coat part coat that you look at, only 2 or 3 people in the world have that skill to build that particular weave or that extra motif technique, or how the dye can be made from the root of a tree. Only that one village in the world knows it today. So we cannot allow it to perish, and we want to be able to let that sail, and people have to appreciate this, and the product has to do the talking of this particular aspect. And so I think this entire marriage of all of this is a big challenge that I see ahead of us, and being able to successfully meet all of this and bring Boito to a global platform where everybody recognizes these stories and how beautifully these garments represent them, that would be a success for me.
Are you afraid?
I'm not afraid. I feel like we'll get there. Yeah, I think with friends in the community, with friends like you, I think everybody's been super nice, and that's been my experience. Everybody wants to join hands and help without any share of the pie in it for them, right? So I think my experience so far is validation enough for me to not feel scared of what lies ahead of us.
And I don't think you should. I really believe in your story, Richa. And while you said a global platform, my wish for you is that we see Boito with the Chanels of the world, with the Yves Saint Laurents of the world, um, for two reasons, right? Why not? Why not an Indian brand alongside these international brands? But also, just from what you've told me about just the craft and the intensity and the preciseness and the beauty, so more power to you and more power to Boito, and keep owning it. We need more women like you to own it and to just really transform the world we live in.
Oh my God. Thank you, Sandhya. That is super powerful.
With every conversation with women who are taking control of their narrative, I'm constantly inspired. Don't forget to tune into the next conversation with yet another woman choosing her own path and owning it.